Dirty Jobs really didn't change in terms of what the show is, but it changed for me personally.
I think the media world, in nonfiction anyhow, began this migration from the age of authority into the age of authenticity.
They warned us about Mike Rowe, but no one took it seriously. He looked harmless enough, just a man with a charming smile and a smooth, comforting voice. Millions watched him crawl through mud, climb into sewers, and laugh his way through the toughest jobs in America. To most people, he was simply entertaining, even inspiring. But those who looked closer sensed something different, something deeper. Behind the jokes lies something that no one saw coming. Something that would leave the world questioning everything once it was finally revealed. The man behind the voice. Before he became a household name, Mike Rowe was simply a man with a voice that could make anything sound worth listening to. Calm, friendly, and full of wit, his storytelling carried an effortless charm that drew people in. Yet behind that easy smile and soothing tone was a sharp, questioning mind. He wasn't just narrating stories. He was quietly challenging how people saw the world around them. Every word he spoke carried a subtle weight, a curiosity that pushed listeners to think differently about work, life, and the people who keep the world running. Mike's story begins in Baltimore County, Maryland, where he was born on March 18, 1962. He grew up in a modest home with parents who worked as teachers and believed in the power of honesty and hard work. They taught him that effort mattered more than recognition. But perhaps the greatest influence in his life came from his grandfather, a tradesman who, as Mike fondly recalls, woke up clean and came home dirty. That single line became a symbol of dignity and hard labor, shaping Mike's lifelong respect for blue-collar workers, the people who built, fixed, cleaned, and carried the country forward while often going unnoticed. As a child, Mike wasn't the loudest kid in the room, but he paid attention. He listened closely, mimicked voices with uncanny accuracy, and discovered that words could move people. He had an ear for rhythm, a sense of timing, and a deep curiosity about how things worked. These small traits would later define his career, though at the time he had no idea where they would lead him. At Towson University, Mike chose to study communications. It was a natural fit for someone who loved both language and performance. He didn't plan on becoming famous. He simply wanted to master the art of expression. Outside the classroom, he joined theater productions and choirs, learning how to command an audience with both his voice and presence. His passion led him to the Opera Institute in Washington, where he trained his voice like an athlete, learning to control tone, pace, and emotion with precision. Those early experiences shaped what would become Mike's most powerful gift, his ability to make people listen. His voice carried warmth, honesty, and authority without arrogance. It was the kind of voice you could trust, one that could make even the simplest story feel profound. But behind that growing talent was a deeper observation forming in his mind. He noticed how disconnected society had become from the people who did the hardest jobs. "I no longer thought about the person who was growing my food or making my car," he once said. That realization planted a seed. Mike wanted to reconnect the world with the workers who made everyday life possible. But little did Mike know, the very voice that gave him purpose would soon lead him into the unlikeliest spotlight of all, a late-night shopping network that would change everything. From QVC to Discovery. Mike Rowe's journey into television fame began not with a grand plan, but with a dare. A friend once challenged him to audition for a job at QVC, the popular home shopping network. Mike, amused by the idea, didn't take it seriously. But when he stepped in front of the camera, everything changed. Within minutes, his quick wit, smooth humor, and easygoing personality impressed the producers. He was hired almost instantly. What started as a joke became a crash course in live television, a place where he learned to think fast, improvise, and make even the dullest product sound fascinating. At QVC, Mike spent long nights talking to insomniac shoppers about watches, gadgets, and jewelry. There was no script and no second take. If a camera failed, he had to fill the silence with stories. If a product broke on air, he had to laugh it off and keep talking. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and exhausting. But for Mike, it was the perfect training ground. Every broadcast strengthened his ability to hold attention, connect with viewers, and stay calm under pressure. He learned how to sound genuine, even when selling a pencil sharpener for 20 minutes straight. Although the work wasn't glamorous, QVC gave Mike something more valuable than fame. It gave him presence. He discovered that his greatest strength wasn't just his voice, but his authenticity. He didn't sound like a salesman. He sounded like a friend. When he finally left QVC, he carried with him a rare skill, the ability to make anyone listen. After leaving the shopping network, Mike's voice began to find a new home, behind the scenes of some of television's most gripping shows. His deep, steady narration soon became a familiar sound in millions of living rooms. He lent his voice to Deadliest Catch, How the Universe Works, and Shark Week, among others. These programs needed a narrator who could guide viewers through danger, science, and mystery without overshadowing the story. Mike did exactly that. His tone was calm and honest, never exaggerated, and it gave weight to every scene he described. Viewers trusted him, even when they didn't know his face. As his narration career grew, so did his reputation among producers. They admired how he could bring empathy to a story, how his voice carried the emotions of the people he spoke about. He wasn't just reading lines, he was translating human experience. But despite this success, Mike began to feel restless. Something was missing. He wanted to move beyond the studio, beyond the safety of the narrator's booth. He wanted to get his hands dirty, to live the stories, not just tell them. He often said he wanted to be in the story, not stand outside of it. He craved a challenge that would let him see the world from the ground level, among the people whose hard work often went unseen. That wish would soon come true when an unexpected encounter with a humble farmer would give birth to a show no one saw coming. The birth of dirty jobs. Sometimes, life-changing ideas come from the most unexpected places. For Mike Rowe, that moment happened on a small, unassuming farm. He was filming a segment for a local television show when he met a sheep farmer named Gene. The visit was supposed to be a routine piece about agriculture, until Gene asked Mike to help with one of the farm's less glamorous chores, castrating lambs. What followed was messy, uncomfortable, and far from what anyone expected to see on TV. But it was also completely real. There were no retakes, no scripts, and no filters, just Mike, the farmer, and a raw, authentic look at what real work truly meant. When the footage aired, it struck a nerve. People couldn't stop talking about it. Some were shocked, others amused, but almost everyone was fascinated. The producer, Mary Sullivan, saw something powerful in that chaotic, muddy moment. She realized the world was hungry for authenticity, for a show that didn't hide the hard parts of life behind polished lighting and fake smiles. Together with Discovery Channel executives, she and Mike took that single messy farm day and turned it into a groundbreaking idea. And so, Dirty Jobs was born. From the start, the show had one rule: keep it real. There were no actors, no rehearsed lines, and no staged reactions. Mike wasn't just a host, he was a participant. Each week, he traveled across America to join people doing the dirtiest, toughest, and most vital jobs imaginable. He climbed into sewer systems, shoveled through pig farms, scraped gunk from wastewater tanks, and even helped embalm bodies at a morgue. By the time the show reached its height, he had taken on more than 200 jobs across the country. Every episode pushed him into new depths of grime and danger, but also into the heart of America's labor force. Dirty Jobs ran for 8 successful seasons and quickly became one of Discovery Channel's most beloved shows. Viewers tuned in not just to see Mike get dirty, but to meet the people who worked tirelessly behind the scenes of modern life. They were the ones who kept the lights on, the pipes running, and the world functioning. Through laughter, sweat, and exhaustion, Mike showed that these workers weren't invisible. They were heroes. The show didn't just entertain. It taught something deeper. It reminded viewers that every convenience in daily life exists because someone, somewhere, was willing to do the hard work. Mike noticed a pattern as he traveled: help wanted signs in every corner of America. Even during high unemployment, essential jobs went unfilled. The show highlighted what Mike later called the skills gap, the growing divide between available work and the shrinking number of people trained to do it. But as the nation applauded this unfiltered honesty, critics began to question whether Mike's message carried a hidden challenge, one that would soon ignite fiery debates. The education debate that split America. After Dirty Jobs made Mike Rowe a familiar face, he began to see a troubling pattern. All across the country, he found help wanted signs in factories, construction sites, and farms, yet millions of college graduates were struggling to find work. To Mike, it was clear that America had created a strange paradox: too many people without jobs, and too many jobs without people. This realization pushed him to challenge one of the country's most deeply rooted beliefs: the idea that everyone must go to college to succeed. Mike began speaking out against what he called the college for all mindset. He argued that society had convinced an entire generation that a 4-year degree was the only path to success, while quietly looking down on the trades. That mindset, he said, created the skills gap, a growing divide between the number of available skilled jobs and the shrinking number of people trained to do them. Even during periods of high unemployment, skilled trades, from electricians to welders, were desperate for workers. Meanwhile, student debt was climbing past $1.7 trillion, and many graduates were working in jobs unrelated to their degrees. In 2008, Mike decided to take action. He founded the Mike Rowe Works Foundation to restore respect for skilled labor and help people pursue careers in trades. His goal was simple but bold: to make hard work cool again. The foundation offered work ethics scholarships to students who wanted to learn a trade instead of attending a traditional college. Applicants had to sign the SWEAT Pledge, a promise built around 12 principles of responsibility, gratitude, and discipline. Since its launch, the foundation has awarded more than $16 million in scholarships to over 2,600 people across 48 states. Mike's message reached Congress, where he testified multiple times, calling for stronger support for technical education. Many working-class families praised him for saying what they had long felt, that America had lost touch with the dignity of work. But critics pushed back, claiming he oversimplified complex issues like inequality and undervalued higher education. Mike responded calmly. He wasn't anti-college, just anti-debt and anti-entitlement. His argument was about balance, not blame. As of 2025, his warnings feel more urgent than ever. Over 7 million working-age men have left the labor force entirely. A statistic, Mike says, reflects a deeper cultural problem: a society that has forgotten the purpose and pride in honest work. And just as the nation wrestled with his ideas on education, a deeper question emerged: was Mike Rowe a fearless truth-teller, or just a troublemaker stirring the nation's wounds? Truth-teller or troublemaker? As Mike Rowe's fame grew, so did the debate about who he really was. To some, he was a modern-day folk hero, an honest man giving voice to the workers who built America. To others, he was a smooth-talking provocateur whose opinions on education and politics rubbed people the wrong way. Celebrities, journalists, and politicians often weighed in on his words, proving that even a man who once crawled through sewers for television could stir up national arguments from behind a microphone. Mike's reputation as a truth-teller took off when Dirty Jobs became a cultural hit. Fans praised his authenticity. Actor Tim Allen once called him the kind of guy America needs right now. Funny, grounded, and unafraid to get his hands dirty. Even business leaders like Elon Musk and Mark Cuban publicly praised Mike's stance on skilled labor. Cuban wrote on X that Rowe was doing more to fix the American workforce than most policymakers ever will. But not everyone shared that admiration. Some media figures accused Mike of oversimplifying social issues. Journalist Chris Hayes from MSNBC argued that Rowe's message ignored economic inequality and made poverty sound like a personal failure rather than a systemic problem. During a heated online debate in 2016, a critic accused Rowe of anti-intellectualism for suggesting that college isn't for everyone. Mike replied calmly, "I'm not against college. I'm against debt without direction." His response went viral, gaining millions of views and sparking thousands of comments from both sides. Still, many found comfort in his honesty. Legendary musician Ted Nugent praised Mike as a national treasure, while actor Adam Carolla called him the last sane voice on TV. On the other side, cultural critics labeled him dangerous for making inequality sound noble. Some educators worried his message could discourage students from pursuing higher education altogether. Mike's worldview remained consistent. He believed that pride and purpose come from contribution, not credentials. He often cited his grandfather, who worked with his hands and taught him that satisfaction is born from effort. His philosophy mirrored what some compared to Ayn Rand's belief in the virtue of work and creation. For Mike, success wasn't about wealth or fame. It was about showing up, doing the job, and doing it well. The controversy only amplified his influence. Conversations about trade schools, student debt, and work ethic began to dominate public discussions. Politicians even quoted his speeches during hearings about labor shortages. Whether praised or criticized, Mike had reshaped how Americans talked about success. Even after Dirty Jobs ended, he kept inspiring new audiences through his podcast, The Way I Heard It, and his show, Returning the Favor. He became both a voice of reason and a lightning rod for debate. Yet beneath the noise of fame and controversy, one mystery still lingered. What became of Mike Rowe after the cameras dimmed and the debates cooled? The man today: legacy, voice, and purpose. Today, Mike Rowe remains a steady and influential voice in American culture, though his work has shifted from crawling through mud and sewers to inspiring people through words and stories. He has traded the chaos of television sets for something more personal, connecting with audiences through conversations that remind them of hard truths and simple values. His mission has never really changed. He still celebrates ordinary people doing extraordinary things, only now through quieter, more thoughtful platforms. One of his most beloved projects is his podcast, The Way I Heard It. Each short episode tells a story with a twist, often revealing hidden heroes or forgotten moments in history. Listeners describe it as a modern version of the old radio classics, filled with mystery, surprise, and heart. It is storytelling at its purest form, and Mike's deep, familiar voice gives each tale a comforting tone that keeps millions tuning in. Through this podcast, he continues to do what he does best: connect people to the human stories behind everyday life. Mike also found success with Returning the Favor, a heartwarming online series that ran for several years. In it, he traveled across the United States, meeting ordinary people who were doing good in their communities. Each episode ended with an emotional twist, as Mike and his team surprised these unsung heroes with help or recognition. The series reminded viewers that generosity and kindness are still alive, even in a fast and divided world. Away from the cameras, Mike has turned much of his attention toward writing and public speaking. His essays and social media posts often explore the meaning of work, gratitude, and personal responsibility. He encourages people to take pride in their efforts, no matter their job title. His speeches at schools, trade expos, and universities are filled with humor and honesty. He doesn't lecture. He tells stories, real, sometimes funny, sometimes raw, that leave audiences thinking differently about success. Despite his fame, Mike continues to live a simple life in Belvedere, California. He has never married and has no children, a choice he discusses with calm acceptance. He remains close to his parents, especially his mother, Peggy Rowe, whose wit and wisdom often appear in his stories. He enjoys reading, writing, and reflecting on how the world views labor, success, and fulfillment. Mike Rowe's influence has endured because it is grounded in truth. He reminds people that respect is not earned through titles, but through contribution. He no longer crawls through sewers or climbs into coal mines, but his message about the dignity of work remains as powerful as ever. Rowe may no longer jump into septic tanks, but the question still lingers. Was Mike Rowe simply profiling thousands of dirty jobs? Or was he uncovering the moral core of a society that forgot how to value labor? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.